All right, the real season begins. The NFL playoffs, 6 wild card games. And on FanDuel, we'll break it down, giving you a full cash and GPP lineup for the entire weekend. And it's all coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lee.
And I'm Michael Wiley, and we're the Fantasy Football Consultants.
Michael, it is the playoffs. It's wild card week. And man, were we treated to 6 great games with a lot of offense. A lot of NFL DFS stars are on the slate. So let's get right to it, into the studio to pull down a cash and GPP lineup on FanDuel.
Let's do it.
And of the 6 games, 4 of them are really high scoring. According to the lines makers, we got San Francisco and Dallas and Arizona and the Rams, 50.5 total points. And right behind them, Tampa Bay and Philadelphia and Cincinnati and Las Vegas. So we're going to be targeting a lot of players from those games as we try to build a floor. So where would you like to start at running back?
Well, Eric, as you can see, I'm standing still outside of Allegiant Stadium here in Las Vegas.
You're still out there, Michael?
It's been an absolute party here since they beat the Chargers on Sunday night. And, I'm just really confident that the Raiders are going to do what it takes to stay in that Cincinnati game. And the only way they can do that is to prevent it from becoming a track meet and putting Josh Jacobs to work. I think that they're committed to doing that to keep that game close. And so Josh Jacobs, who's also getting involved in the passing game, here we are in a half PPR league. I really like Josh Jacobs at the price, I think, of $7,200 there.
Yeah, it's very interesting that the Bengals actually do well on a rush ranking, but they actually do very poorly against running backs, which I think is interesting. And I think when you get a back that's so versatile like Josh Jacobs, out of the backfield, catching passes as well as running. I mean, Michael, in 2 out of the last 3 weeks, the guy's got 28 touches. That's insane. It's not ideal. I don't like picking running backs that are road dogs. But because of the game script he's almost game script proof, given that he's involved in the passing game. All right, so who do we pair Josh Jacobs with? Let's pick up a guy in a great game script, Leonard Fournette. Now, we obviously need to make sure that he is actually going to play, but he should be coming off an injury. They expect he will be back this week, which is the latest note. And you can't ask for a better game script, Michael. He is at home, and he has a 29 implied total, 8.5 point favorites. And you got a Buck team that doesn't have Godwin, that doesn't have Antonio Brown anymore. So Brady is going to be looking to Fournette, not only in out of the backfield to run the ball, but to dump off passes. Look at the targets that the guy has been getting. 7, 7, 8, 8, 6, 9. This is really good situation. And I guess because he's coming off an injury, he's at a very reasonable $7,300 price.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. It's the fact he's coming off injury. You got to watch this close. You got to be ready to have a pivot just in case he's not good to go. Zeke is a little too expensive for my liking. Najee's starting to get too expensive. So you got to really think through another opportunity just in case he's not in.
All right. So let's take a look at wide receiver. Michael, we need to, I'm gonna opt to double my pleasure on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. One of the major criticisms I've had about the Buccaneers is they have so many different guys. Is it going to be a Godwin week? Is it going to be an Antonio Brown week? Or is it going to be a Michael Evans week? Well, Michael, Godwin's gone. Brown is gone. I think it's going to be a Michael Evans week. And like I said with Fournette, 29 implied total. Brady just loves to look at his direction when they get near the end zone. And that's so valuable on FanDuel to have touchdown equity. And I think this is going to be a game which the Bucs going to put some points on the board.
Yeah, no, we've seen the impact that having those other receivers out has been with Mike Evans. He's clearly the favorite target of Tom Brady. A couple of the guys that are above Mike are just too expensive. I mean, Cooper Kupp is obviously a fantastic option, but he's $10,000. I just don't think that we can afford to do some of the other things that we want to do if we go for more expensive.
All right. So where we go from there at wide receiver?
So I think what we do is we pair him with someone in that Cincinnati game that you mentioned, or one of the other games that you mentioned as well. But so we can't really afford Jamar Chase. He's clearly the favorite, but the Raiders do a little better against the outside than they do against the middle of the field. And we've seen that T. Higgins has been racking up the points fantasy wise, almost similar to Jamar Chase, other than, of course, the fantasy football championship for most fantasy players. In that he's been kind of hawking some of those targets. And I think that's what's going to happen in this Raider game as well. And at 6,900, he's another, I think he's $1,400 cheaper or $1,300 cheaper than Jamar Chase. So I like the savings there. What do you think?
Just look what he's done in 4 of the last 6 games, topping 100 yards, getting a lot of touchdowns in those 4 games. Man, in a game I think could be really high scoring. Glad to get some exposure at a very reasonable $6,900 price. All right, so we do need to save a little bit of money, and I think that we can at the 3rd wide receiver slot at only $6,100. You might be saying Brandon Ayuk, and I did consider him, but instead we're going with Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk, remember, it hurts so badly. DeAndre Hopkins is out. He's not going to play in this game. And although he was quiet last week against the Seahawks, look what he has done in the absence of Hopkins in the 3 weeks prior. So this is a guy that clearly is someone that Kyler Murray is looking towards, and I can't pass him up given his price.
Yeah, if you've been watching those games, you can see that Kyler Murray's most comfortable target is Christian Kirk. They're going to be coming from behind, I think. I don't know that he's going to get Jalen Ramsey's blanket coverage, who hasn't been quite blanket just the last few weeks. If he does, that's the only caveat here. I'd like to maybe read up on whether or not that's something that's known. I don't think it is, just because of the way that he typically will play when there's not a clear number one. And so, yeah, at $6,100, I like this price tag.
Yeah, and one thing you like about Christian Kirk is he usually is a very efficient wide receiver. Just look at his catch percentage. And the knock on him always with Hopkins is he just doesn't get enough targets. Well, he's getting targets. All right, so you do, by the way, have a bunch of players who are reasonable pivots between Brandon Ayuk is the same price and Cedric Wilson, who's a little cheaper. If you don't like Christian Kirk is out there. All right, so tight end, Michael. I would like to say, can you imagine? There's only 6 games. Look at the tight ends that are on the slate: Kelsey, Gronkowski, Kittle, Waller.
Yeah, no, we got a great lot to pick from. It would be great to be able to go with Kelsey, and I think Gronk obviously right now is a big target for Tom Brady given the lack of receivers there. Kittle's been a little bit quiet, so his price tag is a little lower than I think I would normally see. But if we can save even a few more dollars than Kittle, Waller's still not quite back yet, right? I think he's out of shape. He's not going to be on the field all game. I think Dallas Goedert, who's consistently been towards the top the last several weeks, is the clear number one in Philadelphia, not just for the go-to plays, including around the end zone, but also just for targets, right? And so look what he's done 3 out of the last 4 weeks, ever since he's been kind of the guy for Philadelphia. So I think that, to have a tight end with that kind of upside and this price tag.
Yeah, how is
it's
he the
tempting.
7th most expensive tight end out of 12 teams that are playing? I'm a little surprised that he's behind Schultz and Knox, and Waller is just a name. No offense to your Raiders, like you said. I think that's his price is just with what he's done in previous years, not based on anything that he's done this year. And remember, we say it all the time. I mean, it's going to be difficult to run heavily on Tampa Bay. So Philadelphia is going to have to throw the ball. And I think not only because Tampa Bay is good against the run, but also because I expect Tampa Bay to put up a lot of points. So from a game script perspective, I mean, Philadelphia is an 8.5-point underdog that they should be in behind and having to throw. To get what we want at quarterback and defense, we're going to have to save some money at the flex position. But Michael, look how far I am going to go down. I'm going down to 6,700 for Sonny Michel. So good news and bad news for Sonny Michel. Here's the good news. Darrell Henderson is out. He's done. So he's not sharing with him. Bad news is Cam Akers, the guy who was supposed to be the starter last year, this year, who got hurt in the preseason, did play last week. But guess what? Sonny Michel outgained him 21-5, outcarried him. Now, that was Akers' very first game back. I honestly expect Akers to have a larger role than he did last week. But I think this is still Sonny Michel's primary ball carrier. And look what he's done in that role over the last 6 weeks. And a game that I think that the Rams should be ahead. They are favored. They're at home, 4 points. I like Sonny Michel here. And by the way, and he, 27 implied total, home favorite. There you go.
Yeah, and the Cardinals are a little bit weaker against the run than they are the pass. The one fear here is that the Rams have relied very heavily on the pass for their touchdowns. And so, will they be throwing, 3 and 5 yard passes instead of trying to run near the goal line where Sonny Michel does his most work. If you can afford the extra couple $100, I really like Singletary here as well. I think the Bills have realized that that is a way for them to get balanced attack in the game. It's not just all Allen in the past this year, especially of late. So I like the upside there, but he has a couple $100 more, and what we want to do isn't possible with that spend.
Yeah, the good news for Singletary is he's completely taken over the running back carries on this team. Just keep in mind that he's always going to share the load with Josh Allen, in the sense that Josh Allen's always taken off and running the ball a lot, and unfortunately a lot around the goal line. But surprisingly, 5 TDs in the last 4 games from Singletary. All right, so Michael, you've got $11,700 to spend between a quarterback and a defense. Where would you like to go?
Well, we got to get some upside on the quarterback spot. I want to make sure that not only we have a pretty decent floor, but we got some real potential. I don't think we can quite afford Allen and Mahomes, but I think we can comfortably afford Dak Prescott. While I think Burrow may have a little bit more upside with what he's done week in and week out, Dak has looked really sharp. I think the Cowboys have decided that they need to pass the ball to win. Look what he's done in the last 3 games. Arizona was a loss, but those other 2 games were solid wins. I think you're going to see a lot of Dak Prescott. Sometimes, unfortunately, he may come out inaccurate, but he's getting through that. What he did in that Washington game was amazing. So
where the running game has behind Ezekiel Elliott hasn't quite been what you would have expected at the beginning of the year. The passing game's been incredible. I mean, he has so many weapons to throw to, but the tight end Schultz, as well as CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. And although they lost Michael Gallup, Cedric Wilson has really filled in very nicely. I mean, you're looking for a high floor, and I cannot imagine. I mean, he's a home favorite, 27 implied total. And he's always a threat to give you a little bit something on the ground, including a potential rushing TD, which he hasn't had in a while. So there's Dak Prescott.
And bear in mind this Philadelphia and Washington games, he played basically the first half in the Washington game and in the first 3 quarters in that the other way around. A little over the first half in the Washington game and 3 quarters in the Philadelphia game. So, I mean, he could have had even bigger games if those would have continued on.
All right. So let's leaves us exactly $3,700 for a defense. Veteran FFC folks know that we usually don't want to spend a whole lot of money on a defense. And I'm happy, Michael, that for $3,700, we can get the San Francisco 49ers. No, I know we just finished talking about the praising Dak Prescott and the Dallas offense, which is why, you see that you got a lot of red here. But I'm not counting on the Niners shutting down Dallas. What I'm counting on them to do is to put pressure on the quarterback. Guess what? 5th in the whole NFL at putting pressure on the quarterback. And just look at the stats, folks. Look at the fantasy production that the defense has done. They haven't had a bad game. And when you're looking at it here, it looks like they had 9 or more in 7 of the last 9 games. Their defense is relatively healthy coming into this. I actually, on a separate show, and you got to check it out, by the way, Michael and I, along with an experts panel, picked every one of the NFL Survivor games against the spread. We both picked the 49ers, so we don't see the Niners getting blown out here by Dallas.
Yeah, that's right. And so, there are worse alternatives that I can think of what we had left here. So I'm really happy with this for $3,700.
All right. So let's check out our GPP lineup. All right. This is our GPP lineup where we're always looking for a high ceiling, which we're going to start off with a stack. And you're going to stack 1 of 4 games, right? And we're choosing the Las Vegas Cincinnati game. Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase, and we love the ceiling that Jamar Chase can give you. Boy, Michael, has this guy been hot this year as a rookie?
Yeah, no, what a fantastic season, especially towards the end. The upside here is absolutely amazing. I think that is a really good duo for big upside, as you've seen in your fantasy football championships.
The other game that we're going to attack, which is a 50.5 over under, is the Dallas San Francisco game with Deebo Samuels on one side and Cedric Wilson on the other side. I'll let Michael talk about Deebo Samuel. I'm going to talk about Cedric Wilson. Man, I have been so impressed at how he stood in for Michael Gallup and the confidence that Dak Prescott has in him and actually looking his way. And for $6,000, he's a bargain. On the other side, man, is there anyone more dynamic than Deebo Samuels? Meaning how much a team wants to get him the ball, whether it be out of the backfield or with passes, than Deebo Samuel?
Yeah, and he's even, I think, thrown a pass this year. So he's been kind of everywhere and will be huge in this game. I think he's a big part of the Niners being able to keep pace with the Cowboys. And so I really like his upside as basically someone who's both a running back and a wide receiver.
We already talked about the running backs, Devin Singletary and Sonny Michel, and we talked about Dallas Goedert and Christian Kirk and the San Francisco 49er defense. Michael, any final comments about this GPP lineup as a whole?
No, I mean, I think we hit on the points. You really want to make sure you give yourself a chance to get some big upside. I think we've got that in here. It's always a little bit of a challenge in these playoff games because of the price tag, but I'm pretty happy with what the potential is here. So let's go with it.
It didn't quite work for us, but you're the Raiders expert. We did not run it back with a Raider. If you would have, Michael, would you do it with a Waller? Would you do it with a Hunter Renfrow, or would you do it with Josh Jacobs, given how much he catches passes?
Yeah, I think. I mean, we talked about Jacobs. I think the upside there is pretty good, but I think Renfrow is really more of the touchdown target right now.
So, Michael, I got to tell you, we had so much fun this week actually breaking down all 6 of the wild card games against the spread. Not only did you and I discuss it, but we had 4 experts join us with their takes. These are all people who closely follow our show and earn the right to be on the show by correctly picking the divisions in order 1 through 4, and whether there'll be a wild card teams and who they would be if there were some.
Yeah, what a blast it was hanging out with Scott, Laura, Brett, and David. They were great, well prepared, and a lot of fun hanging out with them.
We will put a link to that video on the screen right now. Please check it out, as well as if you want to debrief in week 18, including a wild Charger Raider game. We comment about that questionable timeout that Brandon Staley did. You can check that video out. Until we see you next time, take care, everybody.
Be safe.